So we have a guest here. He's the author of Indistractable, How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life. He's going to give us all the tips on how to make sure this type of stuff doesn't distract us. Nir Eyal, how you doing?
Yeah,
great.
Great to have you on the show. Now, according to many surveys, more than I could ever finish reading,
common sense, right?
Current tech is causing people to have lower attention spans. Do you think this is true?
Depends on what kind of tech. Last time I checked, when kids are on their devices, they've got a great attention span. It seems to really hold.
If it's Candy Crush or something like that.
Well, you know, there's a lot of mythology out there and misperception in terms of attention spans and misinformation, and so we want to make sure we're really clear about what we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, it is very pervasive, and technology is certainly designed to be persuasive. There's no argument about that. There is argument discussion whether it's really addicting us or hijacking our brains. I argue actually it doesn't for the vast majority of people. Now, some people are pathologically addicted, but for the vast majority of us, it's not an addiction, it's a distraction.
So I leverage technology in order to increase my productivity, but sometimes it is a distraction. So isn't it a double-edged sword?
That's right. I mean, all technology comes with this potential curse. It does work for us. It makes our life better. It helps us connect. I mean, the superpowers that we have today to connect with each other, it's amazing. When we were kids, this would have been science fiction. Now, of course, it does come with a downside. The downside to having the world's information at your fingertips is that sometimes we overuse it. But I believe, as opposed to vilifying technology and shaking our fists at the technology companies or waiting for the politicians to change something for us.
They're never going to change it.
Yeah, no.
We can change it
They're
ourselves.
always behind the curve.
Exactly. We can do something about it right now for ourselves.
And one interesting thing you mentioned that really caught our eyes is you mentioned that distraction is another way that our brains attempt to deal with pain.
That's right. That's right.
Therefore, do you suggest people who are workaholics to go into therapy?
Ding, 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 ding. Maybe we do need therapy, Julia.
I don't have time for that.
Before you do that, before you go into therapy, it certainly works for some people. Before you do that, I think what we do need to realize, all of us, is that all of our behaviors are prompted by a desire to escape discomfort. That the reason we impulsively check these phones, some of it is what's called an external trigger, the pings, the dings, the rings, all the things.
It's like a game, right? Yeah. We want to see what's next.
But the deeper reason, it's not just the proximal cause, it's not what's in your hand, it's what's in your head. And the ultimate reason why we use these devices as distractions is because we're escaping something we don't want to feel. Loneliness, uncertainty, boredom, fatigue, that is why we are impulsively grabbing for stuff. And if we don't deal with that fact, we're always going to find distraction in something.
Okay, so you say time management can help fight distraction. Tell me more about that.
Time management is pain management. So it doesn't matter what techniques or gurus, tips you're using. Fundamentally, if we don't deal with this deeper truth that we are looking to escape with our devices, then we'll always find something, whether it's a book, a TV show, the radio. I mean, distraction has been with us since the dawn of mankind. In fact, Plato talked about this 2,500 years ago. He talked about akrasia, this tendency that we all have to do things against our better interest. It's not a new problem. There are these new tools, which means that if you are looking for distraction, it's certainly easier to find. But it's not a new problem, and there are some great solutions that can help us put it in its place.
Yeah, like myself, and I believe a lot of our viewers, we simply don't have time to go to therapy, and therapy is not really affordable, right? So for those of us, what are some simple tricks that we can use to increase our focus when we're doing something? Just focus on this thing and not get distracted.
Yeah. So there are no simple tricks, first of all, and I think that's part of the problem, is that we want everything to be this easy solution. Part of it is, look, if you can't sit with your daughter, and this is my story, I would sit with my daughter and I'd find myself checking my device when my little girl is sitting there right next to me. That wasn't my phone's fault. There was stuff going on in my head and my life that I had to deal with. So some of that might really be doing some serious, self-reflection on what are you trying to escape exactly? What uncomfortable sensations? Now, that's the first step. We can also learn ways to cope with that discomfort in a healthier manner. We also need to plan our day, right? So 2/3 of Americans don't keep any sort of calendar. Well, you can't call something a distraction unless you know what it distracts you from.
Good point.
And then the third thing we can do is we can hack back the external triggers. For as much as these devices are hacking our attention, we can hack back. There's nothing the tech companies can do if you change those notification settings. That's easy stuff. That's kindergarten stuff. Also in the workplace, many of us work in open floor plan offices that are full of distraction. So that's another area that we can hack back. Meetings, emails, we can hack back all of these technologies. And then finally, the fourth step is to prevent distraction with PACT, where we can actually use technology against itself. We can use tech to block out tech. So there's really only these 4 basic steps.
I want to go back to the first point you said, which is you have your girls here and then you're sitting here and you're on your phone, right? There are 3 things going on. It's they're there, they want to play with you. And then you are thinking about something else that's not them. And are you telling me that you are getting on your iPhone or whatever other device because you're trying to distract yourself from your thought at that moment?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Whether it's, there's only so much time that I could take with my toddler. I needed an escape, right? There's also the fact that I was thinking about my business and the emails that were coming in, and I was having this itch to go check. And so instead of taking it out on my daughter and teaching her that whatever was on my phone was more important than she was, I had to learn tactics to cope with that discomfort in a healthier way.
Why is it that you, or not you, but like people in general, I have this thing going on in my mind, why can't I use, in your case, the girls as a distraction to avoid the technology, the other device?
Yes.
Why can't we do it that way?
So it's really about the definition here. So distraction, the opposite of distraction is not focus. The opposite of distraction is traction. Both come from the same Latin root, trahare, which means to pull, and they both end in the same 6-letter word, action. So traction is any action that pulls you towards what you want to do in life, things that you plan to do in advance. The opposite of traction is distraction, anything that pulls you away from what you really want to do. So don't believe these critics that tell you that technology is hijacking your brain, that it's addicting everyone. That is not true. If you want to check Instagram or Facebook or email or whatever, that's fine. But do it on your schedule when you want to, as opposed to when the app maker is trying to convince you to do it.
So tell me a little bit about yourself before we go. How'd you get into this? How'd you start writing books?
Yeah, so I taught at Stanford at many years, at the business school there, and then later at the design school. I sold 2 tech companies, and I had this hypothesis that
no big deal. I sold 2 tech companies.
Exited 2 companies.
Do you have a PhD, or what's your background?
I have an MBA.
You have an MBA, and then you got into teaching, which is unusual for someone with an MBA.
Right, so it first came this idea, this hypothesis that this was back in 2012 when my last company was acquired, and I had this hypothesis that habits were really going to matter, that I could see the interface was shrinking from the desktop to the laptop to mobile devices to wearable devices, and now with the Amazon Alexa, the interface has disappeared completely, right? Yeah. So that means that habits become more important for business, that if you can't remember to use a product or service, it might as well not even exist. And so habits were very, very important. But when I looked for a book on how do you build habit-forming products, I couldn't find one. So I wrote it. And the book is called Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products.
I've seen it on the shelf, of course. Yeah.
If I could put you on the spot for a second, Stanford's business school, first of all, it's very hard to get in. And it's essay, what is important to you? What did you write for that? What is important to you?
This is on the spot.
Yeah, I know.
I wrote that essay in 2005, so I don't remember actually. To be honest,
I guess you would write it on habits these days, wouldn't you?
These days, if I were to write about it today, what matters to me is to live with personal integrity. That's what being indistractable is really all about. It's not that you never get distracted. That's impossible. Being indistractable means that you strive to do what you say you're going to do. We don't lie to our children. We don't lie to our friends. We don't lie to our family. We lie to ourselves. We say we're going to work out.
Yeah.
We don't. We say we're going to be fully present with the people we love. We aren't. We say we're going to do that hard project. We procrastinate. So my goal, and by the way, I'm patient zero here. I mean, I wrote this book because I was struggling with distraction, particularly after my first book. When I wrote my first book, nobody was calling me. Nobody was emailing me. Then when my book became successful, now I was getting all these calls and emails, but it was distracting me from all this other stuff in my life that I wanted to do, like continue writing, which is the thing that made me successful. So I really had to figure out, how do I live with personal integrity? How do I do what it is I say I'm going to do in business and life?
Yeah, that is very important, because we often get proposals, stuff we can do, and then we're just like, oh no, I have to turn down half the stuff because that is not aligned with my philosophy or what I want to do in life. Right. You just have to decide for yourself.
Right. And it is becoming, I think, the skill of the century.
Yeah.
That because we have access to so much information, so much potential distraction, we have to have the skill. Our children really have to have this skill, because if you think the world is distracting now, just wait a few years. It's not going to become less distracting. So the world is really bifurcating into people who say, no, my attention in my life will be controlled and decided by me, and those who let their kids and their boss and social media and the news and everything distract them from what they really want to do in life.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
Very
for coming.
insightful.
Thank you.